In the glittering halls of 18th century Versailles, where power, luxury, and intrigue danced hand in hand, one woman shone even brighter than the rest. Surprisingly though, she wasn't born into this aristocratic lifestyle. Instead, her allure, charm, and beauty earned her a place of prominence in the court of King Louis XV of France. The woman was Jeanne Bécu, later known as Madame du Barry. This is the story of her meteoric rise from rags to riches, as well as her wretched end at the hands of the French Revolution. Born in August 1743 in Vaucouleurs, around 150 miles east of Paris, baby Jeanne Bécu was the illegitimate daughter of a seamstress and allegedly a monk. Despite gaining an education at the Saint-Ours convent, the pious life wasn't what Bécu envisioned for her future. So, when she turned 15, she swapped the tranquil convent setting for the raucous streets of Paris. Needing an income, Bécu sold trinkets. She then found a job assisting a hairdresser with whom she had a brief relationship. Soon after, Bécu was employed as a companion to an elderly widow. However, she was quickly sent away after attracting the attention of two of the widow's married sons. Bécu quickly became infamous in Parisian clandestine circles for her dazzling beauty and flirtatious advances. By 1763, she was employed as a sex worker at one of the city's gaming salons. It was here where she caught the attention of Jean-Baptiste du Barry. Du Barry was essentially a pimp who procured young, beautiful women for the aristocracy. Knowing that this was probably her best chance to get the wealth she dreamt of, Bécu agreed to work for du Barry. His brother, Comte Guillaume du Barry, also the owner of a casino, installed Jeanne in his household as his mistress. In just a matter of time, an endless stream of aristocrats and noblemen were lining up to meet the beautiful Bécu, or as she now became known, Mademoiselle Lange. It was in 1768, during a visit to Versailles with one of her regular clientele, Maréchal de Richelieu, that the King of France, Louis XV, first caught sight of Bécu. He was instantly besotted. During this time, it was routine for the king to have a mistress. They were even adorned with the title Mistress en titre. Despite Louis's obsession, he couldn't name Bécu as his Mistress en titre. To qualify, a mistress had to first come from a noble family and also be married. Bécu was neither. To resolve this issue, it was decided that Bécu would marry Guillaume du Barry, while a false birth certificate was forged to validate her noble descendancy. In early 1769, Jeanne Bécu, now known as Madame du Barry, moved to Versailles. She was installed on the second floor at Versailles, where she was given 14 rooms, including a bathroom with running hot and cold water, something unheard of in the mid-18th century. Reportedly, her everyday routine began at 9 a.m. when Zamor, her young Bengali slave, would bring her a morning cup of chocolate. She'd select a gown and jewellery and be dressed. Then her hairdresser would come to do her powder and curls. Yet, despite her infinite access to good, her moral compass remained intact. When the Comte and Comtesse de Luzon were forcibly evicted from their chateau for heavy debts, they were sentenced to death because the Comtesse had shot dead a bailiff and a police officer while resisting. Upon hearing this, du Barry begged the king to pardon them, refusing to rise from her knees until he agreed. Louis XV was moved. "Madame, I am delighted that the first favour you should ask of me should be an act of mercy." Although du Barry had Louis's approval, that feeling was not shared amongst the court. She wore costly, extravagant gowns, and diamonds covered her neck and ears, straining the treasury all the more. Her beauty caused much jealousy and alienated potential friends, while her influence over the king angered the various statesmen who wanted such power for themselves. One such enemy was Marie Antoinette, an aristocrat and the future Queen of France. Not only did she disapprove of du Barry's modest background, but also felt insulted when she heard the king's mistress laughing at a salacious story told about Antoinette's mother. Despite the intrigue and niggles at court, Madame du Barry lived very well. She was showered with gifts, sat for numerous portraits painted by artists such as Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun, and was offered highly valuable jewellery, including the infamous diamond necklace valued at an equivalent of around $14 million today. If that wasn't enough of a sign of Louis's admiration for his mistress, he also gifted her a chateau on the outskirts of Paris. Sadly, the serenity wouldn't last for Madame du Barry. In 1774, Louis became sick with smallpox. Less than a month later, he died. Even more unfortunately for du Barry, the king's death led to her lover's grandson, Louis XVI, ascending to the throne. Louis XVI's wife, Marie Antoinette, had du Barry exiled to the Abbey du Pont aux Dames near Meaux-en-Brie. After 2 years at the convent, du Barry was given approval to move into the chateau gifted to her by the late Louis. Separated from court life, shunned by Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, Madame du Barry lived off the wealth bestowed upon her from her time as a maîtresse en titre. She led a quiet life away from the limelight, devoting her time between passion projects like art and architecture, as well as the Duke of Brissac, whom she fell in love with in 1782. But such comfort wouldn't be afforded to du Barry's life forever. In 1789, the French Revolution swept across France, demanding the dissolution of the monarchy and the uprising of the common citizen. And du Barry, as a symbol of excessive wealth, was at risk of the revolution's wave. In May 1792, whilst at her chateau, du Barry heard a fervent rabble outside. Opening the window to investigate what was going on, she spotted a crowd outside her chateau shouting. Before she had time to react, a large object was tossed through her open window. A circular item wrapped in stained red cloth rolled across the floor. As du Barry unravelled the cloth, she fainted. It was the severed head of her lover, the Duke of Brissac. Yet, she didn't have long to grieve. Around the same time, her former slave, Zamore, became a follower of the revolutionary Georges Griffe. Based largely on Zamore's testimony, Madame du Barry was suspected of financially assisting émigrés who fled the revolution. In 1793, she was arrested and condemned to death on account of treason. 11 months after King Louis XVI and 3 months after Marie Antoinette, Madame du Barry's date with destiny was set. On a cold December morning in 1793, a crowd gathered around Paris's Place de Révolution, eager to see how Louis XV's mistress would bear her punishment. Unlike the long list of aristocrats and nobility that faced the guillotine stoically before her, Madame du Barry refused to go out passively. On the way to the guillotine, she collapsed, shrieking, "You're going to hurt me. Why?" Despite pleading with the watching crowd for help, it was to no avail. As the executioner readied the instrument of death, her last words were, "De grâce, monsieur le bourreau, encore un petit moment." One more moment, Mr. Executioner, I beg you. While many have been critical of du Barry's controversial rise to fame, the Mistress en titre was simply making the most of what few resources women had in 18th century France. Contemporary criticism of du Barry was even more fervent, with many nobles, including Marie Antoinette, looking down upon the former peasant girl as an unworthy mistress of Louis XV. Yet, in spite of her humble beginnings, Madame du Barry's barbaric death, as well as her burial at the Madeleine Cemetery, where Marie Antoinette was herself laid to rest, confirms how this lowly daughter of a seamstress became part of the fabric of the French aristocracy.